This is TWiT.
So iOS 12.2 is out in beta, and of course, immediately, Stephen Troughton-Smith started pouring through the code and found references to 4 new iPad models, including Wi-Fi and cellular models. This kind of coincides with registration info for 7 new iPad models that was delivered to the Eurasian Economic Commission database. I guess that's like FCC approval in the U.S. You got to do this in Europe and Asia. So I'm gonna go to Renee Ritchie, who is our source code parser. Troughton speculated there might be new iPad minis, and an iPod Touch device without fingerprint or Face ID. Does that all make sense to you?
So the iPad mini has been rumored for a while. You know, Apple's, as much as the iPad Pro has gone up in price, Apple's been good at pushing the iPad Nothing, the iPad 9.7 down, and adding new features to it like Apple Pencil support, and bringing back the iPad mini with a non-laminated screen would slot really nicely underneath that iPad and make an even more affordable option, especially for education and for enterprise that wanted to use it in a mass deployment. And Apple Pencil support on the mini would be great as well. It would be like the digital field notes of my dreams. So I'm all happy for that. The non-Touch ID, non-Face ID thing, Steve mentioned that it doesn't make much sense. It could be a very, very specific device at a very, very specific price point, but it's hard to see just not including Touch ID on anything anymore, given how many years old it is and how relatively inexpensive that technology is now.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I had an emotional response to the idea of a digital field note. Yeah, I still have my 3 or 4-year-old iPad mini. I still use it so often because there are times where you just want something that's sort of like almost pocket sized. And if Apple were to create something like if something with the attitude of what if people who don't necessarily want a $900 iPhone also want a really good iOS device, and they were able to let's say take the $329 9.7-inch iPad and decide we're going to make a 7-inch iPad that costs even less than that has basically all the features of that one. That could be incredible, particularly if the reduction in screen size meant a reduction in physical size meant a reduction in actual cost to make it. You could also imagine that little hands might be better with a little screen, and it might be an even better solution for education, anything else. But yeah, I would be that would put me back in line the night before the store opens for the first time for an Apple product if Apple decided to create a smaller iPad mini with a modern CPU.
So when would they announce these new iPads? I mean, if they're putting these in the database, the Eurasian Electronics database
for the last 2 years, like the iPad 5 came out March 2 years ago, iPad 6 came out March last year, or it's actually April last year, then April 2 years ago, then March this year. If Apple does a March event, which they've done, I think 7 out of the last 10 years, then that would be a prime time for it. But it just seems like they've sort of segregated those iPads out into the spring and left the Pros, or the Pros move around a lot, but. Yeah, education timing, exactly.
Was that the last event? Was it that was the one in the school?
That was in Chicago, yeah.
Chicago. So an education event in the spring, most likely.
I think that might have been my first MacBreak Weekly.
Oh,
Wasn't
wow.
that April?
Those were the days. You first met Lori Gill. Yeah, I would love to see a mini. I agree with you, Andy. That's one I'd get in line for. I gave my mini away because I had the iPad Pro, and as much as I love the 12.9-inch iPad Pro, which to me is the most amazing device ever, I'd almost wish they'd do a mini Pro.
That keyboard, though, Leo. That keyboard, the smart keyboard, that small, that size.
Does your keyboard start up in a caps lock every time? It's driving me nuts.
Never.
Every time I type, it's caps. I go, So
first cap or all caps?
Try restarting.
All cap lock. So
wow.
I did order, and I hope to get by that time frame the new keyboard. What was the
Bridge?
The Bridge. That's it. B-R-Y-G-E. Yeah. So
the Jason Snell of keyboards.
The Jason Snell. It turns the iPad Pro into a laptop.
Yeah, it does.
In weight, size, thickness.
Yeah.
Not quite in functionality.
Needs a trackpad.
So
needs a trackpad.
The idea of the iPad Mini. Now that we're just kind of discussing it, I'm just thinking there's the iPhone SE went away, and there's been a little bit of kind of resurgence.
Came back for like 5 minutes last week.
Right, and it's making me think that Apple maybe is kind of positioning, okay, so you want a big phone. We can't make an inexpensive big phone. So what we're going to do is sunset the less expensive big phone, and we're going to make small tablets so that you can still be a part of the Apple ecosystem without having to spend $1,000 on your phone. It makes a lot of sense that if Apple's going to get rid of the iPhone SE, that now is the time for them to bring back a very low-cost iPad mini for those people who don't want to spend or can't afford to spend that large amount of money to enter the Apple ecosystem. You know, phones have been traditionally the way new people would come to the Apple ecosystem. And maybe this iPad mini is Apple's way of saying, we still want to bring you new people into the system, but we can't make a good phone for the price that you want it, but we can make a tablet.
Yeah, Lori makes a really great point. If Apple really does want to double down on services, one of the best ways to do it would be to make sure that there are of greater variety and less expensive, really good devices that people can use to access that video service and that game service and that cloud service. And maybe an iPad mini would really, really suit that bill. It's a really good idea.
We can only
figured
hope.
It all out.
We can but hope.
There you